No matter what kind of organization we're talking about, from a tiny two-person startup to a giant global corporation, they all have to answer one fundamental question. And how they answer it can literally make or break them. What if a natural disaster hits your supply chain? What if there's a massive data breach? What if a financial crisis pops up out of nowhere? It's this feeling of uncertainty that everyone deals with. And it's honestly one of the biggest challenges in business today. So, how do you even begin to answer that big what if question? Well, there's a formal way to do it. It's a whole discipline called risk management. And it's all about turning that scary uncertainty into a structured plan. At its core, risk management is exactly what it sounds like a process. You identify potential threats, you assess how bad they could be, and then you figure out how to control them. And these threats can come from literally anywhere: financial markets, legal trouble, simple accidents. And these days, you better believe digital security threats are at the top of pretty much everyone's list. Okay, but why go through all this trouble? Well, it's pretty simple actually. When you're prepared for the unexpected, you can move forward and make big decisions with way more confidence. It's really about protecting the future of the business. And the benefits? They go way beyond just, avoiding disaster. Of course, it makes for a safer, more stable workplace, and that helps lower your legal risks. But it also has a direct impact on the bottom line. For example, by really understanding your risks, you can get the right insurance coverage instead of just overpaying for a policy you might not even need. It's about being efficient. So, how does this all work in practice? Well, most risk management plans follow a pretty consistent cycle. Let's walk through the 7 key steps. Okay, but before we dive into the nitty-gritty of each step, there's one thing you absolutely have to understand. This is a continuous loop. It's not a one and done kind of thing you can just check off a list. The world is always changing, new risks pop up, so this process has to be ongoing to have any real effect. So here they are, the whole roadmap. You can see how it flows logically, right? You start by understanding the big picture, then you pinpoint specific risks, analyze them, and decide what to do. But honestly, the last two are the ones people often forget, and they're crucial. You have to keep monitoring because things change, and you have to communicate clearly with everyone involved. A great plan is useless if nobody knows about it. Okay, so you found a risk, you've assessed it, now what? You don't just have one path forward. It turns out there are 4 main strategic choices for how to handle it. First, you can try to avoid the risk completely. Just change your plan so you don't have to deal with it at all. Or maybe you can't avoid it, but you can reduce it by putting new processes in place to lessen the potential damage. Then there's sharing the risk. This is like buying insurance or partnering with another company to split the burden. And finally, you can just retain it. This is where you look at the risk and say, you know what, the potential reward here is so big, we're willing to accept the potential cost. All right, but here's the really ironic part. The whole process of managing risk, well, it has its own inherent risks. It's not a perfect science, and anyone who tells you it can predict the future with 100% accuracy, well, they're wrong. We expect that these complicated models are going to give us total control, right? To be able to predict everything perfectly. But the reality? It's often just an illusion of control. These models can make us feel like we've got a handle on everything, which might cause us to overlook some new, totally unexpected threat. And since they often rely on past data, they can create this false sense of stability, making us feel safe right before something goes wrong. So, to get around these problems and really professionalize the whole thing, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Organizations can actually turn to global standards to build a common, really effective framework. And one of the biggest standards out there is ISO 31000. The core idea here is that risk management shouldn't be some separate department with a clipboard. Nope. It needs to be woven into the fabric of everything an organization does. It has to be tailored to each specific project, be totally transparent, and this is a big one, always take human factors into account. Because at the end of the day, people are unpredictable. And that really brings this whole thing back to a question that applies to everyone, whether you're running a massive company or just, living your life. You can never eliminate risk completely. It's impossible. So you just have to decide what you're willing to live with. So what's your tolerance for risk?